And Raymond Keller woke to an empty garage and a silence so complete it felt wrong. His 500,000 Lamborghini, the centerpiece of his life's passion, was gone, and somewhere in that stillness, a perfect crime had already begun. The morning sun rose slowly over Los Angeles, painting the hills in gold and orange, when Raymond Keller realized something was terribly wrong. His mansion sat on a quiet stretch of Mulholland Drive, a place where silence usually meant safety. But on this particular Monday, that silence felt heavy, almost accusing. Keller had been a collector of rare cars for over 2 decades, and his pride and joy was a 2022 Lamborghini Centenario, one of only a few ever made. It wasn't just a car, it was a piece of art, a machine worth more than $500,000. He had bought it after years of searching, kept it in a climate-controlled garage, and even hired a private security firm to monitor his estate. But when he walked into his garage that morning, the Lamborghini was gone. At first, Keller thought it was some kind of misunderstanding. The gleaming white floor of the garage looked untouched, and the security system still blinking green. The steel gate outside was locked, and every other car, his Bentley, his Porsche, even the vintage Mustang, sat exactly where it belonged. But the space where the Centenario should have been was empty. The sight made his chest tighten. There was no broken glass, no tire marks, no signs of forced entry. The keys were still in the drawer, untouched. It was as if the car had simply vanished into thin air. When police officers arrived, they expected a simple theft report, maybe an inside job or a faulty alarm. But as they examined the scene, confusion replaced routine. The security cameras had recorded everything, yet the footage made no sense. At exactly 3:47 a.m., the Lamborghini's headlights flickered once, the garage door opened slowly, and the car rolled forward without a sound. There was no figure behind the wheel, no shadow in sight. The car glided down the driveway and disappeared into the night, as if it were driving itself. Investigators replayed the video over and over, hoping to spot a clue, a reflection, a hand, a face. But there was nothing. The system hadn't been hacked, and the alarms hadn't been disabled. Everything functioned normally. Keller insisted that only 2 people had access to the garage: himself and his personal mechanic, a man he trusted completely. But even the mechanic seemed shocked when questioned. The situation made no logical sense, yet the evidence was clear. Someone had managed to steal one of the rarest cars in the country without leaving a trace. By noon, detectives were treating the case as a high-profile heist. Reporters gathered outside Keller's gates, eager to catch a glimpse of the millionaire who had lost a car worth more than most homes in Los Angeles. For Keller, the attention was unbearable. His selection was insured, but this wasn't about money. The Lamborghini had been his dream, something he'd worked for since his first paycheck. Now, that dream had been taken in the quietest, most impossible way imaginable. As the day faded into evening, the unanswered questions only multiplied. How did the thieves unlock the garage without triggering alarms? How did they move a half-ton supercar without starting the engine? And perhaps most unsettling of all, why had they chosen his car, out of all the others? Police promised answers soon. But Keller had a feeling deep in his gut that this was only the beginning of something much bigger than a stolen car. Detectives from the Los Angeles Police Department began their work before dawn the next day. The missing Lamborghini had already made its way into the morning news, and public pressure was mounting fast. Every luxury car owner in the city wanted to know how a $500,000 vehicle could disappear without a single alarm sounding. Investigators started by analyzing the vehicle's built-in GPS tracker, hoping for an easy lead. But when they accessed the system, the screen showed nothing but static. The GPS had been shut down remotely at exactly 3:49 a.m., just 2 minutes after the car left the garage. It wasn't jammed or broken, it was erased. Whoever stole the Lamborghini understood its internal systems better than its own manufacturer. The investigation moved quickly. Officers canvassed the area surrounding Keller's mansion, speaking with neighbors, checking security footage, and scanning for any sign of the car. One neighbor mentioned hearing a faint hum that night, like the sound of a generator or electric engine, but nothing more. The roads leading away from Keller's home showed no skid marks or signs of a chase. It was as though the vehicle had vanished into the dark without ever touching asphalt. Later that afternoon, an officer from the highway patrol reported something odd. Near an old industrial park on the edge of the city, fresh tire tracks were found pressed into a patch of loose gravel. The spacing matched the exact dimensions of the Lamborghini's high-performance tires. The pattern was unique, wide grooves and shallow edges, designed for maximum grip. Investigators believed the car had been loaded onto another vehicle there, most likely a large transport truck. When detectives searched the area, they found nothing but rusted warehouses and empty lots. But one warehouse still had a working security camera mounted near its roofline. The footage was grainy and distorted by fog, yet at 4:10 a.m., a large white truck could be seen pulling out from behind the buildings. Its trailer was covered, and its license plate was missing. Detectives tracked the truck's route using nearby traffic cameras. The vehicle appeared again briefly on a highway entrance ramp heading toward the Harbor District. Then, just like the Lamborghini, it vanished. The cameras in that area were either disabled or conveniently pointed away. When police checked the city's records, they discovered that maintenance crews had been scheduled to repair those same cameras later that week. It was too perfect to be coincidence. Someone had known exactly where the surveillance blind spots were. As the hours passed, the case grew stranger. Analysts traced electronic signals from the area and found that a short burst of wireless interference had occurred around 3:45 a.m. right when the Lamborghini disappeared. That meant the thieves had likely used an advanced signal jammer, something usually found in military operations, not car theft. By evening, detectives gathered in the operations room to review the evidence: a missing car, erased GPS data, a mysterious truck, and a path that ended at the harbor. The working theory was that the Lamborghini had been stolen to order, taken by a group who knew how to dismantle security systems with precision timing. Yet there was something about the silence of the theft, the calmness, the precision, that unsettled everyone in the room. It didn't feel like a random job. It felt rehearsed, planned down to the second. And as night fell again over Los Angeles, the investigators couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. As investigators dug deeper into the stolen Lamborghini case, a new pattern began to emerge. The theft no longer looked like the work of a small group of opportunists but something larger, smarter, and far more organized. Detectives started comparing the case with other high-value car thefts reported across the country over the past year. The similarities were hard to ignore. In each case, luxury vehicles vanished from secured properties without a single alarm being triggered. Surveillance footage always showed the same eerie silence, cars gliding out of garages as if driven by invisible hands. Not one of those cars had ever been recovered. The pattern pointed to a professional syndicate known to investigators as the Shadow Crew. They were a highly skilled network of tech-savvy thieves operating across multiple states. Their reputation was whispered about in police briefings and auto security circles. They didn't smash windows or break locks. They exploited technology. The crew specialized in cloning digital key fobs, manipulating onboard computers, and disabling GPS systems. In most cases, the thefts happened so cleanly that insurance companies initially believed the owners were involved. Detectives believed the Shadow Crew worked in small, specialized teams. One member would hack the car's communication system, another would disable trackers, and a third would handle transport and delivery. They were known to move stolen vehicles overseas within 48 hours, shipping them under false labels through major ports. Once the cars left the country, they were nearly impossible to trace. The Lamborghini case seemed to fit their profile perfectly. Investigators began monitoring the harbor closely, scanning manifests and cargo containers leaving Los Angeles. It was a tedious process, and at first, nothing unusual appeared. But a few days into the search, a customs officer noticed something strange. A shipping container listed as containing industrial machinery was flagged for departure under a newly registered company name. The paperwork looked legitimate, but the company didn't exist. The officer, familiar with the ongoing investigation, decided to alert detectives. When the container was located and scanned, it showed the shape of a large metallic object, roughly the size of a car. Police surrounded the area and pried the crate open with anticipation. But when the doors swung wide, the container was empty. Not a single trace of the Lamborghini or any machinery could be found. The interior smelled faintly of gasoline and rubber. Proof that something had been there recently. It was as if the car had been moved just minutes before the inspection. Detectives realized they were being watched. The operation to intercept the shipment had been confidential, discussed only within a small task force. And that meant someone inside the system had tipped off the thieves. The shadow crew always seemed to stay one step ahead, as if they could read every move the police made before it happened. The discovery rattled everyone on the case. It was no longer just about a stolen Lamborghini. It was about a sophisticated criminal network that had infiltrated legitimate systems and learned how to exploit them. Investigators started to wonder if their own ranks had been compromised, and if someone close to the case was feeding information to the very people they were trying to catch. By the end of that week, the team's frustration turned into determination. They began tracing the origins of the fake company tied to the container. The trail led to a series of shell corporations, each registered under false names, bouncing between addresses in Nevada, Arizona, and California. Every lead ended in the same dead end, a blank wall of digital camouflage. But the detectives refused to stop. The stolen Lamborghini was no longer just evidence. It was the key to exposing something far bigger, something that reached deeper than anyone had expected. The investigation into the stolen Lamborghini had stalled for nearly 2 weeks when a small but crucial discovery reignited the case. A junior officer, while reviewing old surveillance clips from the industrial park, noticed something almost invisible. A faded white logo on the side of the truck seen leaving the scene. When the image was enhanced, the logo revealed the partial name of a defunct auto repair business that had closed 3 years earlier in East Los Angeles. It wasn't much, but it was the first solid lead in days. Then detectives traced the property's ownership and found that it had recently been purchased under an alias connected to one of the shell companies. Linked to the fake shipping document, the pieces were finally starting to fit together. Late one evening, a small task force assembled to raid the location. The team approached quietly, moving through the shadows of the broken-down neighborhood. The old repair shop stood behind a chain-link fence, its sign faded and windows dark. It looked abandoned, the kind of place no one would think twice about passing by. But when the officers got closer, they heard the faint hum of machinery beneath the floorboards. That was enough to move in. With a single signal, the doors were forced open, and flashlights cut through the darkness. Inside, the building appeared empty at first glance. Dusty shelves, broken tools, and the smell of oil lingering in the air. But a metal grate near the back wall caught one detective's attention. It was slightly ajar, and with fresh boot prints leading to it. When they lifted the grate, a staircase descended into a hidden underground level. What lay below was something none of them expected. The basement was a fully equipped workshop, more advanced than many legal garages in the city. Rows of high-end tools, diagnostic scanners, and industrial lights illuminated half-dismantled luxury cars, Ferraris, McLarens, Bentleys, all stripped of identifying features. Each part was carefully labeled, ready for sale or shipment. Some of the engines had already been removed and stored in crates marked with foreign codes. It was a professional operation, precise and efficient. Among the wreckage stood a set of white panels that investigators immediately recognized. They belonged to Raymond Keller's Lamborghini Centenario. The car had been taken apart piece by piece, its unique identifiers erased. As the team secured the area, one officer noticed something wedged beneath the stripped chassis, a small flash drive wrapped in tape. It looked intentionally hidden. When the device was examined later at headquarters, the contents sent a chill through the room. The drive contained video footage. It timestamped the night of the heist. It showed the garage from a different angle, one not covered by Keller's security cameras. A man wearing a hood and gloves moved with calm precision, unlocking the Lamborghini using a small handheld device. He wasn't breaking in or forcing anything, he was operating with complete knowledge of the system. Detectives slowed the footage, enhancing the image frame by frame until the man turned slightly toward the camera. Though his face was partly obscured, in one detail stood out: a wristwatch engraved with the initials RK. It was the same watch Keller had gifted to his mechanic a year earlier, a reward for years of loyal service. In that instant, the truth began to unfold. The theft hadn't been an outside job orchestrated by strangers alone. It had been guided from within by someone Keller trusted completely. The discovery of the footage changed everything. For weeks, investigators had been chasing a faceless network of thieves, assuming the operation had been entirely external. But the video proved that the crime had started much closer to home. The man captured in the hidden camera footage was identified as Keller's longtime mechanic, Daniel Holt. He had worked for Keller for nearly 8 years, to maintaining every vehicle in his collection and managing the garage's advanced security systems. To anyone who knew him, he was loyal, quiet, and trustworthy. But behind that calm appearance, Holt had been playing a dangerous double game. Detectives pieced together his involvement through digital records and financial trails. Months before the heist, Holt had begun communicating with an encrypted email address traced to an online black market known to be frequented by members of the Shadow Crew. He offered insider access to one of the rarest cars in the country, providing security schematics, key fob data, and detailed blueprints of Keller's estate. In exchange, he was promised a significant payout once the car was safely out of the country. Holt had spent weeks preparing, secretly cloning the Lamborghini's signal codes during routine maintenance. When the night of the heist arrived, he didn't even need to be present inside the house. He had programmed the garage to open remotely and enabled the thieves' devices to communicate with the car's internal system. It was a betrayal built on patience and precision. However, greed quickly unraveled Holt's plan. Once the Shadow Crew completed the job, he received his payment through offshore accounts. But the amount was smaller than what he'd been promised. Angry and afraid of being cut off, Holt tried to secure more money by contacting law enforcement anonymously, pretending to be a whistleblower. His message tipped them toward the fake shipping container at the harbor, hoping to appear helpful while keeping suspicion away from himself. What he didn't know was that his contact within the criminal group had already intercepted that message. When the container was opened and found empty, it wasn't luck, it was revenge. The Shadow Crew had learned of his betrayal and erased every trace of his involvement in their network, leaving him exposed to investigators. Within days, Holt's double life collapsed. Police obtained a warrant and searched his apartment, uncovering encrypted hard drives, offshore account statements, and a series of coded communications linking him directly to the theft. During questioning, he tried to deny everything, but the evidence was overwhelming. His fingerprints matched those found on the flash drive hidden in the underground workshop, and his digital signature was traced to the cloned key data. Eventually, he confessed, admitting he had planned the heist months in advance. And the information he provided helped authorities locate several members of the Shadow Crew operating within the United States. A coordinated series of raids followed, uncovering hidden workshops and storage facilities filled with disassembled luxury vehicles. Dozens of arrests were made, and millions of dollars in stolen property were recovered. Still, many of the ringleaders vanished before they could be caught, slipping across borders and disappearing into the same shadows they came from. For Raymond Keller, the recovery brought little comfort. His Lamborghini was beyond repair, reduced to fragments of what it once was. The betrayal hurt more than the loss itself. He had trusted Holt like family, never imagining that loyalty could turn into greed so easily. The case left a lasting scar on everyone involved, a reminder that the most dangerous crimes are often built not on force but on trust. And even in a city used to secrets, the quiet precision of the 500 Stolen Car Heist became a story people would whisper about for years to come.